Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece, episodes 264, 265, and 266. We are starting the Enies Lobby arc, kids! Here we go! In this episode, shockingly, Luffy decides that he doesn't give a shit about the very carefully laid plans of his team members. Nobody could have predicted this. Absolutely no one could have seen this coming. It's a shock, I tell you. Out of character behavior. It truly caught me off guard. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to the One Piece crew for commissioning this episode. What's up, kiddos? So this episode, these were really fun, these three. Real weird in the way that they were set up, because the first of the three episodes introduces these like three new baddies who are like, they're not really explained like what their position is or anything. They're just sort of in the scene as it begins, and one of them is very, very strange. I would appreciate if y'all would give me some guidelines, or not guidelines, that's not the word I want. If you would give me some crib notes. Is that the one I want? Crib sheet? A crib sheet? That's the one I want. In the comments of what each of these new dudes is called. We've got the big round one whose mouth is a zipper. We've got the dude who's wearing almost what looks like theatrical like makeup and long hair, and he is extremely dramatic, so that feels like it kind of goes together. And then we have the other dude who's just like way ordinary in comparison. And of course, we have two giants that wind up getting introduced to things later on. So the giants, I feel like, had a decent introduction in terms of them just being part of the overall defense of this island prison. But the other three dudes are evidently like part of a crew, and they had a job to do and they failed. And I can't tell. Am I supposed to know what the job is that they were meant to do that they failed in? Or is this the first we're hearing of a thing and it's going to be filled in later? Because there's a lot going on in the show, and sometimes something will have happened literally like 100 episodes ago and it will just suddenly come back. So I don't want to miss if this is a reference to something that has happened already. But normally, when that happens, they do a little bit of a flashback within the scene, and they didn't do it this time. So I was not totally clear what's going on there. Because they're explaining how they like failed in the mission because Zippermouth is out here just telling their business to the entire town. And Seraphim says, "This moment inspired one of my favorite quotes about One Piece. The plot doesn't happen to Luffy. Luffy happens to the plot." That feels right. Round zipper guy is Fukuro. Fukuro? Ooh. I can never tell how I should say things because I am used to the like Latin accent usually on the first syllable or last syllable. But in Japanese, I think it tends to be like the second syllable a lot of the time. Gus says they are all also CP9. They were just not in Water 7 like the other 5. Zippermouth is Fukuro, which means owl. The loud one is Kumadori. And the ponytail guy is Jabura. Or Jabura. See, this is what I'm talking about with the accent. I'm putting the accent on the wrong syllable. His shtick is he's dressed up and overacts like a no theater performer. Okay, cool. Yeah, and he is like constantly prepared to kill himself. Is it seppuku? Is that how you say that? And then as he like drives the sword into himself, he initiates his iron body technique, which of course renders him impossible to pierce with the sword, and then laments how he can't even die correctly. Which I do kind of enjoy the idea that like it's just such an automatic thing to invoke that technique that it's like an involuntary, like breathing, you know, the sort of thing where they say that unless you do, if you're trying to drown yourself, you have to really prepare for the way your body is going to fight against it. Because it's just this like innate thing. Gus says the mission they had was to assassinate some branch leaders of the Revolution Army, which we have not heard much about. Okay, so I wasn't supposed to know anything about this going into it. Okay. That I think is why the opening of this trio of episodes felt so weird, because they were talking about something without really giving me any information about it, and it just felt like I had maybe missed something. It's so weird. This show really is all over the place in terms of how much they want you to know. Like, they will just drop so much info on you at once about a thing, and it will be that you're not given any time to absorb it. And then there's shit that they overfeed you, the fucking flashbacks, repeatedly, that you do not need, because you've not only did you know what happened, but it was like it happened last episode. And they will still do that same flashback like 2-3 times in a row within the same episode. And then this stuff where you just are dropped in and there's no explanation, and they just carry on this conversation, and you just kind of have to like go with it. It's a really weird approach that I feel it could be balanced better. You know, there's ways to do this and signal, I think, that it's like the information is coming, or give me anything to sort of feel like I'm on my feet. Whereas most of the time it sort of feels like I'm groping around trying to get my bearings. But all that said, it's like only the very first of the primary like introduction. And then after that, we go back to the main plot of the rest of the whole crew trying to break into Enies Lobby. So it doesn't wind up being an issue for the whole thing. But we have this, like, the meeting is between these three guys and the dude with the face that got burned off. And I can't remember his name either. Who we find out later that, the dude, the round dude, Fukuro, he can test the overall strength in like a numerical form of everyone's attacks, which I don't know if that's just his specific skill, or if this is a skill that like once you get to the CP9 level you can learn to develop. It seemed kind of like he was specifically capable of this, but I might be wrong about that. And their boss is only a level 9, whereas the rest of the crew of CP9, the lowest level attack starts at like 650. And that just seems like I wouldn't expect him to be the boss for very long. I'm wondering exactly how he manages to maintain this position. Because, I mean, if everybody could just fucking walk all over you, which they could, what kind of what's the word I want? What kind of threat can you carry? You know, like what kind of consequences could there possibly be to you? Just if these guys decided to do whatever they want, he can't do anything about that. They're all way too much for him. Is his dad somebody important? Like, what's the deal? Oh man. Seraphim, sorry, I conflated your comment with your name. Seraphim says, dumbass, douchebag, shit stain, worthless, tiny-dicked asshole. All of these are perfectly legitimate things to call Spandam. I forgot that's his name. That's such a weird name. Well, damn, first of all, is what I will say. But I believe you. I don't really get how he wound up in the position that he has, being as underpowered as he seems to be. He is the same level of power as any of the regular soldiers out here that Luffy has taken down, literally in the hundreds by the time these 3 episodes are over. So, wow, what are you doing here, sir? Now, all this, I'm getting ahead of myself here. But the introduction with these 3 guys, it is a really, like, wild scene because they have fucked up badly. And the one is trying to take all of the blame. Like I said, gonna kill himself and then can't. Then we have another who is, like, mocking him for being so willing to apologize, and basically is like, if you're a real man, you don't ever apologize, which okay, Andrew Tate, whatever. And then there is our big-mouthed friend who is not only immediately willing to tell them all that he shared their business, but he says, I didn't mean to. And I can't tell if it's supposed to be that he's just, like, unaware of when he's saying things, or if it's, like, a weird, because of the fact that his mouth is zipperable, if that's supposed to be, like, linked to the way his, like, gossiping works. I don't know what to think of this guy, but he is... he's voiced in the dub by a girl, and it's really off-putting. I've got to admit, the voice of, like, a young girl coming out of the mouth of this giant monster-looking creature, extremely unsettling. I hate it. Like, he's already one of the weirder-looking characters we've seen. We have characters a lot of the time who have little body, like, oddities, you know. We've got Sanji with the eyebrows. We'll have really long noses. We'll have just, you know, wild hair or ears or super long legs. But this dude's mouth being a zipper, this really feels like we've gone next level a little bit. And that's already just, I don't like it. But then you add the, like, little girl voice, and there's something about it that's fucking creepy, man. Let's see. Oh, Gus, he got arrested today, by the way. It took me a second. I realize now you mean Andrew Tate. Yes. You guys, that dude got arrested for trafficking. There were 2 women who had been abducted, being held against their will in an outbuilding of, like, on his property. Like, serious shit. And he is quoted as having moved to Romania because he's not a rapist per se, but he wants to at least be free to do what he wants, and he can't do that in America. So, yeah, don't want to, like, bog down this episode with talk about Andrew Tate, but he has had quite a day. He had a little, like, Twitter spat with Greta Thunberg, and he lost so spectacularly that he made a whole, like, 2-minute long rebuttal video that basically amounted to "I'm rubber, you're glue," in which he wore this, like, kimono in a wood-paneled room while smoking a cigar, getting Domino's delivery, talking about how he won't recycle the boxes. Honestly, the wildest shit I've ever seen. I don't understand how a person like that exists in the world. Like, it feels like a joke. This is a joke. It's like he's a Will Ferrell character. Anyway, yeah, he's been arrested. So what a day for him. Yay. I hope he goes down in flames. Anyway, so these three are out here like in this sort of closed room meeting with Spandam, and he is actually kind of chill about how much they fucked up. Like, initially he's just going, well, how could this have happened? But then when we have Mr. Dramatic offering to kill himself, and it sort of breaks out in a bit of a fight amongst all of them, then he's just going, well, all right, I understand. And he like backs off in a way that was actually really funny to me. It just sort of felt like, I can't be bothered. What's done is done, and I'm not going to go down with this, you know? No. I'm so sorry, guys. In the chat, Seraphim says, the best thing is that video is why he got busted. They tracked the pizza place that sent those boxes and found where he was staying from them. Oh my God, is that true? I didn't know that they were looking for him. I had heard that his home got raided already once in like March or April, and that they were building up some evidence. He played it off as if he had just been swatted because people were bitter, and that it was actually nothing. But what I heard today was that they found some evidence and not enough, and they were building a case, and so today was like the final swoop in. But I didn't know that they like didn't know where he was located or anything like that. I thought it was, wow. So apparently Romania is not as free as you thought, huh, Andrew? Anyway, okay. I'm sorry, guys. So also we get this beautiful thing here. I'm going to bounce back into our friends. This is so great, you guys. Fucking Chopper and Luffy 100% have not figured out who Sniper King is. And I told you guys that they did not translate Soge King in the like episode where he was introduced, but now it does. It says Sniper King, and I don't know why they changed it, but it's fine. I'm just going to call him that. But we have his like theme song again. It's slightly like different in terms of the overall animation than it was before, but it's the same song, and I love it. We have the end of the song and him staring off into the sunset with the waves splashing around him, and then we come into the present with Luffy and Chopper watching him with these like sparkles dancing around their heads because they are completely enthralled and believe that he is a superhero, which I genuinely want to know what Luffy thinks a superhero is. Because Luffy, buddy, you're a superhero. What do you think he can do that you or anyone that you have met with wild powers so far can't do? Like, Luffy actually says something like, I've always wanted to meet one. And I mean, apparently what Luffy, how he describes a superhero pretty much depends on, do you wear a cape and a mask? And like, if you don't, then you don't count as a superhero. So I guess that, but we have had people who wear capes and masks before. We definitely have. But nevertheless, this has absolutely enchanted him and Chopper. And y'all, I just can't get mad at the fact that they are so fooled by these things. It's just charming. I love this for them. I love that they're kind of gullible. I want to be a little bit more gullible in this sense. And because I feel like it's a more fun way to live. And I just appreciate that Usopp is getting some of the like validation that he needs from them throughout all of this, you know? I am really curious if the fact that he has changed his identity here and presented himself differently is going to have any impact on the way Luffy treats him and the way that Usopp sees himself. Because that's been the main issue with him getting beaten up and this money stolen from him, right? Is that he has felt useless to the team and has felt like a bit of a joke. And now he is over here like reinventing himself and being believed by one of the main people, like the captain of the crew he was part of. Maybe this is exactly the like rebranding that he needs in order to rejoin the crew and feel like a contributing member in a way that he couldn't before. You know, I'm a big fan of this overall concept of just changing your internal perception of who you're being. And I know that this can be kind of problematic. Like, you know, sometimes you could just call it masking, which is something that neurodivergent people do when they're in situations. But it's also like a valid coping mechanism, I think. And there is like a influencer, I guess you would call her, that I followed for a while because she did a lot of like planner stickers and stuff. And she had made a sticker that all it said was, "Today, be her." And that's all it said. But I felt like it was very evocative because really the vibe was, be the woman you imagine in your head. Be the woman you want to be. Be her today. And there is something about, maybe I can't believe that I am her, but I can imitate her. I can do my best to act like her in a way that feels a little bit more accessible somehow. And I know, like, even fucking Beyonce, the Sasha Fierce thing was part of her approach to because she says that she actually did suffer from feelings of like insecurity and stuff. She would basically inhabit a character that she had invented who was totally fearless and in charge. And that was how she got over these sorts of blocks that she would run into when it came to like live performances and stuff. Even like if Beyonce has this, I don't want to call it imposter syndrome because that feels too strong, but it feels like it's sort of dancing around that, then I can't be mad that I have it, you know, like good God. So anyway, I'm thinking about for the new year, you know, there's a lot of shade thrown these days at doing resolutions and stuff, but I just enjoy them. I mean, I don't necessarily stick to them, but I feel like starting the year with a hopeful note and a desire for change isn't a bad thing. I would like to come up with like a name for my alter ego and try and wake up and be like, all right, today I'm going to be her. And maybe I can come up with a couple alter egos. I'll come up with one that's just like really good at self-care and just takes immaculate care of herself. I'll come up with one who is like a focused, hard worker and one that's like maybe a kind of domestic goddess. And I can be like, okay, who am I going to be today? I like that idea. I'll have a little arsenal. So anyway, thank you, Usopp, for the inspiration is what I'm saying. And also I hope that you get to rejoin the crew and not feel weird about it. I feel like the inevitable reveal of who he really is going to blow Luffy's mind. And I am extremely excited about watching that. I'm not going to lie. It's very exciting to me that he doesn't drop character at all in these episodes. And I'm kind of hoping that he stays as Sniper King through the whole arc, because I am a big fan of the like voice and everything that he puts on for it. It is so funny. Seraphim says the difference between hero and superhero is obviously presentation. That's fair. Gus says definitely imitating the person in my head who I want to be has helped me sometimes too. Yeah, it just feels somehow like more within reach. You're not trying to pretend. You know, I think that's the thing that a lot of us suffer from, this idea of like, well, who am I kidding? I know I'm just going to fuck up. Or what is my family going to think when they know this isn't really who I am? And while that is a very problematic way of thinking that we should try and move past to begin with, it's not always easy to do that. So making it a slightly more short-term goal of just like, well, but maybe you can imitate the person you'd like to be. I like that there's a sort of in-between that you can get to where you're still accomplishing something good for yourself. And it doesn't feel like quite as much of a stretch of your imagination or your faith in yourself to do. It's a lot more of a short-term, like, just for right now, do the thing, instead of trying to change who you fundamentally are, which feels much more overwhelming in your head, if that makes sense. Seraphim says, believe in the Kamina that believe in you. What's Kamina? What's that, Seraphim? Sorry, I don't know. Unless I'm forgetting something. But maybe this is there's something ringing a bell there, but I don't know if I'm making that up. Anyway, okay. Sorry. I just love, too, when Chopper asks, where's Sniper Island? And Usopp says, in your heart. Oh, my God, you guys. This is so great. These dudes are great. Meanwhile, absolutely everybody else knows that it's Usopp. Everybody. Not a soul else is fooled. It's only Luffy and Chopper, which is great because nobody attempts to disabuse them of their notions here. There isn't a single person who chimes in and is like, hey, guys? Nope. Doesn't happen. Everyone's just kind of like, isn't that? Yeah. All right. Well, and they just leave it alone. Seraphim says, oh, we've got to get her to watch Gurren Lagann at some point. I have no idea if that's a name of a person or a place or what, but I have never heard of it. So yeah, that's not ringing any bells. Sorry there, Seraphim. So then we get Sanji sharing the information with everybody about what Robin experienced and how CP9 is using it against her, and basically tells them all, look, we can try to help her. And I don't think that we should give up. I'm not saying that. But I need you guys to know how very serious she is about not accepting our help. This isn't her putting up a sort of no, you mustn't, when actually she wants us to come after her. She's pretty seriously resisting our attempts, and I am not sure what's going to happen if we actually do catch up with her. What are we... She's... The thing that Nami says is she doesn't want to feel responsible if anything happens to us when we try to rescue her. And Luffy just responds with, I don't care about that. If we don't do anything, she'll definitely be killed, right? So, what is the question here? I don't think she wants to die. So, and as he says that, Zoro chimes in because Nami's still trying to argue a little bit. And I do understand why. I'm not trying to throw shade at Nami here. It does feel a little wild to just throw all your lives on the line for a person who's kind of not really part of your crew, who has demonstrated more than once that she doesn't want to come with you. There's a lot of reasons why pumping the brakes might not be the worst idea. But Zoro is the one who is what we have to do. Don't bother arguing with him. We're going to rescue her. It's just end of. Okay? And it makes a lot of sense to me that Zoro is the one backing Luffy's attitude here. Zoro is not going to just let her sail off into the sunset and certain death. He's just not going to do it. So yeah, Luffy is over here stretching and getting limber for his fight. And then we have a scene with him and Polly, who has made a sort of rough map of what Enies Lobby looks like. And it's really fun because he's drawn the dark area, which is the hole essentially that the waterfalls are pouring into. So Luffy knows in theory that's what's going on with the place, but it's not until he sees it in person that he's like, wait, oh my God, what? which, yeah, that is the correct reaction. So I also have to say that I liked in these 3 episodes how often we have the camera sort of pull back and remind us on the map where we are, because there are a few different spots where the fight is going to concentrate because there are gates and whatnot in certain areas, and our friends are split up, of course, as is always happening at this point. And we need to be reminded where everybody is. And I just really enjoy that they did this here. They did this also on the train on the way over. And I'm hoping that they continue to do this in other arcs, because it's not like I need to know necessarily all the time, but there is something vaguely helpful about being able to situate everyone in my head, you know? And there have been plenty of other times where people have been separated, and I really had no idea how far apart they were from each other, or what direction they would have to go in, or how, like, whether everybody was as split up as everyone else. Like, is somebody right next to someone else? They're just like, it's nice to know. And I hope that this is sort of like a recurring thing. But basically the deal is they go through the gates of justice, and then there's the courthouse. And from the courthouse, she will be, if they don't get her before then, she is going to be taken down to the Marine headquarters or the deep sea prison. And essentially what Nami says is, if she goes through those courts and down and gets taken through, there is no getting her back. That's it. We have got to get her back before they bring her in there, because it's game over. And Luffy tries to be like, we're just going to keep trying no matter what. But he gets sort of brought back down to earth, in as much as that ever happens, when I think it's Sniper King who chimes in, or maybe it's Polly. I think it's Polly. He is saying, yeah, she's right. Like, there's just no way to break through that area and get back out again. So then we get this moment where he's like, all right, so we're going to have you guys stay behind, and the Frankie pirates are going to break their way in through the gates. And that way, since you guys are going to be on this train that basically has no brakes on it, you can just keep moving through this open space, and we will have prepared an area for you. And you can leave all of the Marines to us, since there's so many of us. And Luffy says, okay, got it. And then we get the announcement from Kokoro that we are at Enies Lobby, at the gates of justice, which are humongous. Guys, I don't think I realized last time that like kind of foggy image behind them are another set of gates behind the, like, because there's a little building in front that has a still very large gate that looks like a keyhole shape, sort of. And like I said, those gates there are already like 2-3 stories high, those doors. But behind this building are a pair of gates that are about, I've got to say, probably like 30 stories high, probably. It's wild how massive these are. And I think it was too big for me to see the first time. Like, it just didn't process that was part of another building. Do you know what I'm saying? It is really something. There are literally clouds floating in front of the doors because they are so tall. So, I mean, probably higher than 30 stories, but that's what I'm guessing, because it's hard to tell how far away they are exactly. So anyways, this is the moment where Luffy makes his fatal choice. And he slingshots himself from the train over the gates. And it is remarkable how quickly this happens. And everybody is just like, wait, what? Because he does it so... He doesn't warn anyone. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't even, like, let out a cry, as far as I remember, when he flies across. He just does it. And they see him in midair, the Frankie pirates, and are like, wait a second. Isn't that Straw Hat? And they have to, like, let everybody else know what's going on. It's too late. So he's, like, completely given up the element of surprise. However, I do have to say he is offering a different kind of advantage, and that is he is a hell of a distraction. I mean, they are really focusing all their energy on him as he wreaks absolute havoc inside these gates and are not really looking for another whole crew of people to turn up. Like, at one point he yells at one of the dudes, the soldiers that he's fighting, like, you're going to have lots more people to fight soon. But they don't really seem to process how soon. I don't think they're, like, hearing him, you know? Because he is just out here like a fucking chaos gremlin. And why would you really pay attention to his words when his body is stretching every which way? That's what you're going to be paying attention to. I'm not, like, blaming them. So, anyway, this is just so... It's so Luffy. It's so Luffy. And, like, there have been a lot of times where he throws the whole game away, and I get really frustrated. But this time, I kind of felt like what he did was helping them a bit more than tends to be the case. So... Anyway, and I love, too, when he jumps over, Kokoro is just like, that makes sense. And even Usopp says something like, yeah, I guess he's not really the wait 5 minutes kind of guy. And I was like, that's true. Like, if any plan ever requires Luffy to wait for anything, it's just not a good plan. That's not his role. His role is the barge in immediately and do anything. That's his role. And if you can't accommodate him with that, he's going to figure out a way to make you. So he comes flying in. He literally just flies right over the first set of gates and lands like on a pole inside the doorway there, where there's this long walkway between the gates and the town that's sort of in the center that's looks like it's floating. It's like that part of that peninsula. And I am loving this. All these dudes are shooting at him. And Luffy just looks down and says, they found me. Like, you're not trying to hide. So he jumps down inside the gate and is running towards the main gate. And these dudes who are the soldiers outside, they're the guards for the main gate, are like, kind of indulgent with him. They sort of smile, and one of them says something like, hey, buddy, what are you doing? Like, they're talking to him like he's a clueless kid who wound up somewhere by accident. And I was like, guys, what the hell do you think is going on here? Like, I get that he doesn't look like much of a threat, but if he managed to completely sidestep the security that you've got at the outer gate, and he's just heading straight for you at full tilt, like he is sprinting, behaving as if he is no threat at all and just kind of lost, that is a wild interpretation of what's happening here. I don't know why you think that's the way to go, but sir, you got to start taking this shit a little bit more seriously. You know, it's like somebody breaks in and there's like the security alarm is going off and everything at a bank, and the cops turn up and it's a little old lady with a walker. Okay, sure. Maybe she doesn't look like she is a mastermind, but she's inside a bank whose alarm is going off. It doesn't matter that she's a little old lady with a walker. here she is, having done a thing that is allegedly impossible. So fucking arrest her. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, he is coming at them full tilt. And I love when this one dude is just like, oh, it's just one guy. It's fine. We'll handle it. And at first, when they walk towards him and they're so indulgent, I was kind of like, oh, these dudes are, as much as they're dumb, I appreciate them being kind of sweet about this. But then on the radio, somebody comes through and is like, guys, I think that dude is actually... And then Luffy sails through the air and one of them yells, Straw Hat D. Luffy. And everybody knows what this means. He is so famous that he can just... His name now is like notorious. 100 million bounty on his head. And he kicks the shit out of a lot of these dudes, manages to get through, and once he does, just is like, hey, buds, can you just let me through the rest of the way? He like stops and just asks very politely. And I love that one of the guys is like, just because you ask politely, we still can't just do it. And I was like, thank you for pointing that out, sir. And I should also mention that as this begins to pop off, like Frankie and Robin are still being led inside by the rest of CP9. And she starts to hear the commotion out there. And it was kind of odd because when she stops, I think it's Lucci that asks her, are you having second thoughts? And it's too late now. And I was like, dude, no, she's clearly stopping in response to like the fucking ruckus. Do you not hear the ruckus? Like, why are you acting like you don't hear that? But I guess he doesn't. Or maybe he just doesn't think that the ruckus is relevant to them. But I just feel like that's something that you probably don't hear a lot on this island. So I would be wondering about it. I guess he's just very single-minded. I don't know. But anyway, I think that she is aware that they are pursuing her inside the gates. And she's just not saying anything because she doesn't want to make it harder for them. It's already bad enough with the security that they have got. If the CP9 dudes turned back around and decided to help, I don't know that they would be able to make it through. Excuse me, frog in the throat. So, as this is all happening, the like, what is the name of the snail that they use when they communicate with each other? I can never remember what these are called. But Spandam is using that to like talk to the guys at the different gates. And he is getting these like vague updates about what's going on. But because it's so hectic, they are not able to be in communication with him every step of the way. So they're kind of like checking back in with him. And then the dude who was talking to him gets knocked out and he has to get in touch with somebody else. But he is remarkably unwilling to shift his own ass. Like, I mean, what keeps occurring to me here is Crocodile. And like, if Crocodile didn't shift himself, I would be like, oh, he's got a plan that they're walking into a trap. You know, I would be approaching him as a mastermind with a high level enough plan that whatever it is they're doing, his lack of response indicates they are doing exactly what he wants them to be doing. Spandam doesn't have that kind of energy. He keeps assuring himself that it's not that bad, that the guards are just exaggerating or incompetent. And it's the kind of thing where I'm like, if they are incompetent, that is its own problem, dude. Like, that's not something that you should dismiss either. Like, I'm just saying. But there's the occasional check-in, and eventually one of them says that Luffy has taken down 400 guys. And they are watching Luffy continue to completely flatten his adversaries and are about to revise the number. And they tell him, I'm sorry, sir, I was mistaken. Let me give you a different number. And he thinks they mean, of course he didn't kill 300 or he doesn't kill. They say defeated, or I can't remember the euphemism they use, because this show people don't really die. But the dude starts to say 500, and he gets cut off because Luffy chucks another soldier at him. The man gets knocked out by the flying projectile of an actual colleague, an airborne colleague. So he goes down after having only said 5, which Spandam interprets as the correction to the ridiculously overstated 400. And I really do kind of enjoy this overall, like, underestimation of Luffy, and also a villain who is just not really... He is... Like, if you've worked somewhere where there was middle management in a safe office and back, and then there were all the people out on the floor, and you've worked with a manager like that who just never worked the floor. Have you ever worked with somebody like this? And it's like, it could be chaos out there, and they are not leaving their office. Every time you go back there and ask for help, they make some excuse about how they're working on the schedule, or they're answering emails, or I'm doing inventory, or some shit. They are coming up with every reason why they themselves cannot be on the floor with you. And it is the most annoying shit, you guys. Like, so this is the vibe that I'm getting from him. It's not even that he, like, does believe them. I think he does. But I also think that if they told him the correct numbers, he would refuse to believe them because he just doesn't really want to get up. He just poured this cup of coffee, you know, his office is at the exact temperature. He's been waiting all day for this AC to kick in, and he's just comfy and doesn't really want to be bothered. And that just hits for me. Gus says transponder snails. I thought there was another name for them, though, that was like Japanese. Or I say Japanese, but it might have been just like a word that Oda made up. But I thought there was something else that they were called sometimes. I'm sorry. I might be mistaken. Okay. So yeah, he's getting these reports. Meanwhile, we have like the whole rest of the crew, that are beginning to hit the front of this area here. And it is a kind of just a shit show, to be honest. They are about to plow into this main building. We've got the Frankie pirates who are about to face off with... I was wondering, I'm like, are there no other security than these regular ass soldiers? Because the CP9 guys, while I understand that they would be sent to deal with like assassinations and much more high level stuff, I also was kind of like, wouldn't you want to keep one or two of them around for security? Like maybe you would put them on rotation, and every now and then they would get to go out and do missions, but they would also, you would have some here. But it's like a slow reveal eventually when Spandam gets a call from one of these guys, and he's like, Spandam says, have you woken up the other two? I can't remember their names. You guys told me earlier and I've already forgotten. I'm sorry. Denden Mushi. Is that the name of the snails, Seraphim? Yeah, I think that might be what I'm thinking of. But yeah, he's like, where are they? And the guy says, well, it's actually the middle of the night. And I've forgotten to mention this, but evidently the sun never sets on Enies Lobby. So it's also called Daylight Island. I don't know what to make of that. How does that work? I don't want to like get too into it, you know, because I know it doesn't really work probably. But I'm also kind of curious about why that is a thing here, because sometimes I try and associate the properties of things with a theme, you know? And I'll do that sometimes with characters on here unsuccessfully, where there will be a big bad who's got a particularly themed outfit, and it just doesn't really go with what his superpower turns out to be. And I'll expect the superpower to be a certain thing, and it's not, based on what they're wearing and what their face looks like and whatever, their overall design. So I was trying to sort of put a theme with, like, why would the sun not go down? And is it just like the sun doesn't go down on justice? Like, is it supposed to be sort of justice never sleeps? Like, I might be reaching here too much, but I was wondering if you guys, like, knew of something he was going for specifically with this. Gus says Oimo and Kashi the giants. Those are the ones. Yes. It roughly translates to electric communication insect. Apparently snails count as insect in Japanese. Do you know what? Are snails not an insect in English too? Like, what would we call those? Are they a mollusk? I don't even know. I never stopped to think about that until you just said that way. Huh. Seraphim says the light of justice always being a beacon would be my guess. Yeah, that's sort of what I was thinking too. And that's like acceptable as an answer. I just felt like I was sort of just pulling that out of my ass a little bit, and I wasn't sure if that was really anything. But yeah, I accept that. So I'm kind of all over the place here, but I just wanted to talk about these two giants because honestly, I am really loving these two. There's something about them that seems like they don't really want to be the bad guys. Like, they don't want to beat people up because they just like doing it. It's a job, you know, and they agreed to do this job for whatever reason. Maybe the pay is really good. Maybe it provides room and board, and that's something that's kind of hard to find. I don't know. But they're sound asleep, and when they get woken up, both of them are just kind of like, damn it. All right, fine. You know, they're on call. And then when they come out to the Frankie Pirates, they don't just show up swinging. They are like, hey guys, look, I'm sure you've noticed. We are very big. And a couple of you are larger than average. But, like, truly, in comparison, let's be real. No contest. You don't want to do this, right? You don't want this smoke. Y'all are going to get crushed. It's going to be no effort for us to just defeat you. Give it up. And I do really appreciate how they want to try and just talk it out first if they can. They're not bullies. They're not out here just like picking fights and shedding blood because they would like to convince these dudes to turn around so that they can just go to bed and be done. You know? I'm into it. Gus says mollusk / gastropods. Or if they're not arthropods, are they also not mollusks? I don't know what's going on. But I appreciate you looking that up, Gus, because yeah, that never occurred to me. I've always sort of thought of snails as land oysters. And I realized when I was like thinking it, I was like, oh yeah, I guess they couldn't really be like a sea, like they wouldn't be in the same category, I wouldn't think. But that is kind of how I've thought of them. It's just, well, you know, there are things in shells that are sort of slimy, and we eat most of them, and those are something that we consider kind of a weird thing to eat. But when you step back and look at what oysters and clams are, really, it's in the same family. It doesn't feel like it's that weird. They are mollusks / gastropods. Okay, cool. So these two giants are like another couple of dudes that I'm sort of hoping for a team up somehow, because I just feel like they seem ultimately a little bit reasonable. And I could see Luffy being like, hey dudes, I just really want to get through here because I have a friend who I need to save, and like explaining the situation, and these two dudes being like, we do see your point of view. Not necessarily that they would like step aside and just let them through, because they do have a job and it seems like they try and take that seriously. But overall, I just could see Luffy like managing to win them over somehow. Because he does that. Luffy is very disarming. And Luffy, by the way, he has a new move that he tries out in these episodes. I can't remember what it's called. It's like ally robot attack, something like that. And basically what it is, he stretches himself out and wraps himself around the limbs of one of the enemy soldiers and then attacks them using that guy's like body so that they will think twice about retaliating and defending themselves because they don't want to hurt their friend that he's essentially like possessed and taking control of. And it really does work surprisingly well. I felt so bad for the dude who gets taken over by him because he gets stabbed in the back later and Luffy just dodges right the fuck out of the way. Like for Luffy, I have to say this is a pretty, I feel like elegance too kind of word, but it's kind of a genius move in terms of how to utilize his ability. I kind of enjoy the addition of a new technique, and I'm sure we'll get more, as the series continues, but I do really like seeing him find new and exciting ways to use his rubberiness. I think it's very interesting. And I wonder sometimes, like, if you're writing these over the course of a long time and they start to get super popular, are there times where there's just like a fanfic that comes out where somebody created a new technique and you're just like, ooh, that's pretty good. Okay, you know what? No, yeah, I'm going to use that, And like, obviously, it's not super ethical to just steal people's ideas, but God knows that shit happens a lot, especially in like creative spheres. So I wonder if that is like part of what goes into a new technique turning up, or if it is just Oda sort of daydreaming and thinking up something new, like off the top of his head one day. And he's like, wait, what about this? That would be pretty fun. But yeah, this bit with like taking control of their allies and making it so that they don't want to attack the guy, I think that it works somewhat well if you're going up against dudes that he knows who consider him a friend and don't want to hurt their own friend. But I feel like there's a limit to how effective this can be depending on how much the person you're about to fight gives a fuck about who you have control over. Because there's going to be a point at which they do not care. Anyway, so I'm all over the place here, but yeah, I'm kind of like jumped over it, but the Frankie pirates have to use the three biggest guys to break through these outer gates. They have the two backup singer type women who like pick the locks, and they say something that I enjoyed. It was basically, we dismantle ships for a living. Do you think a lock is going to slow us down? And I was like, that's actually a fun point. Like, I keep forgetting about the skills that they have for the job that they were doing. But yeah, they bust through, and this is when they unexpectedly come across these giants, who are real giants, by the way. Like, we saw the giants in that episode where they land on that island and these two dudes are like fighting the same battle forever. That size giant where their heads are up in the clouds and they're in like total darkness because they are so high up that seeing them is like difficult. So it makes sense that these gates are as big as they are, because these giants are, I don't know what came first, the gate or the giants, but either way, I'm just really into this kind of fairy tale-esque direction that it's gone in. So one of them says something about how we're going to squash your bones, and I was really hoping he was going to say to make our bread. But then we have the fight actually begin, because the Frankie pirates are like they take a moment and kind of go, oh, we don't want to do this. But then they regroup and are like, you know what? Our boss is in there. We like this guy. We can't give up no matter what. So the three biggest guys begin to fight and they get knocked out. No problem. It's instantaneous practically for all of them. And the giants are just like, y'all, we are just straight up different from you. Okay? Like, we're not just like big people. We are a different race. And y'all are not ready for this smoke. So they, again, decide, don't give up. Don't, like, you can't have cold feet. We still got to do this. And I was kind of impressed that they decided to go ahead anyway, because I truly thought after their three biggest dudes got taken out that the Frankie pirates were just going to pack it up. I really did. I just was like, look, I get that they like Frankie, but they will find another way, a different way. And I don't know what I thought they were going to do, because there really is literally no other way to go. Like, the building setup and the island setup is such that you literally can't find another way. So good luck. And the loyalty that they have to their guy is admirable, and I appreciate it. So we get the fight eventually where the Sodom and Gomorrah like jump over the gate. And I don't even know how they do this, but they jump over and they start the fight with the giants, and then the shipwrights jump in and they wind up, there's like a horrible thing, you guys, where they nail one of the giant's faces to the wall behind him. And I get that, like, there's no blood. It's not drawn to be as like gruesome as it certainly would actually be, but it was still very upsetting. I really hated this. And so they've got him like gripped up in this one spot, nailed to the wall, literally. And then we have the other guy who takes a swing and accidentally like gets Kashi right in the face. And Kashi gets him right in the face. No, he gets Kashi right in the face, because they nail him in place. The dudes like are standing on his face, and then they just do kind of like blowing raspberries and like and infuriate him and jump out of the way. And apparently he didn't know that Kashi's face was like underneath them or something. He fell for it because he's a big giant dummy. So eventually that dude is taken out and there's just the one giant to deal with. And now that the other shipwrights have shown up, everybody gangs up on the one, and it seems like maybe they're going to be able to take him after all. As this is all happening, the CP9 guys walk into the room where Spandam, and they have brought Robin, and there's a real dick measuring contest. And I already mentioned about like the levels of power. It's a weird thing, guys. So there's a couple things. First of all, the way that they have Khalifa in this scene, I really hate. There's a few things I hate. One is that Khalifa is the lowest on the totem pole in terms of overall power, which just feels really disappointing. She has a badass weapon, and he could have made her pretty strong, and instead he has her relegated to the weakest of them, which I find very much a bummer. But also, she is drawn as saying everything anybody says is sexual harassment. And that just feels like a real gross joke. Like, oh, women, am I right? Like, there's just a vibe to it that I initially, when they were having this joke pop up here and there, I was kind of like, that's weird, but okay, I'll let it go. That joke is made like 4 times this episode, and I genuinely don't know what the fuck. It's not funny. It's just gross. And combined with the fact that she is like made such a weak character and that her outfit is like as revealing as it is, all of it just comes together to just feel extra shitty. And it's just such a bummer that so much of the time there are these like huge crews of all dudes, and then there's like one, maybe two women, and they never pack the same punch as any of the guys do. It just bums me out. So just had to mention that, and like just how tired of this joke I got. And I have a feeling we haven't seen the last of it yet. But yeah, it turns out like these members of CP9 are real competitive with the other crew. And so we have this big zipper mouth who is challenging all of them immediately because he just wants to see what they're capable of. And he is pretty impressed because they have all evidently gotten much more powerful than they used to be. So the members of the team he was with are kind of resentful because he's saying they're more powerful. This crew is more powerful. But he's like, I don't know what to tell you. They got stronger since the last time they were here. So that's what's going on. But yeah, that's like the primary, like what goes on in the scene. And then we have this like kind of ending moment here where Sandom is talking about how everything that you guys are working towards, the world will thank you for one day. And once it's done, I do have something for you. And the camera slowly pans over what I think is like a crate of devil fruits. And I might be wrong about that, but they looked like it's because devil fruits all look different, right? But that seemed to be what they are. It was a quick glance, so it didn't look like there was enough for everybody, but I might be wrong about that. Also, why wouldn't he eat one? Because he's very weak. He should. But that was what I was guessing from that. And we have this weird moment with Robin in one scene where she's like in a room and then she looks up and it's like she is imagining that she can see the ship with the inflated octopus how they like descended from Skypiea. It's like she can see it in the room with her. And she's looking at herself leaning against the edge of the ship. And there's this real nostalgia moment. It was a very odd scene because our friends just sort of like hallucinate. And it's not a real hallucination. It's not like I believe she really sees it. But she's like imagining it so strongly that it's as if she could see it. We just don't really get that very much in this. So it kind of caught me off guard. I didn't even get what was happening for a second. So yeah, that's like basically the episode ends with Luffy, like heading towards the main building and Robin going inside with her cuffs on and Frankie wrapped in chains and being told that the commander-in-chief will see you now. And that is how the episode ends. So I am way over time. I really have to wrap. But thank you guys very much for hanging out with me. Appreciate you all a lot. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.